If government can protect kids from the sick radical left, shouldn't they also protect kids from hunger? Wouldn't it make sense to strengthen food stamps and have school lunch be free, since some kids are in school lunch debt? Well, I mean, if you are a parent, school lunches are not going to solve the problem of child hunger at any serious level. If there is a problem of children actually starving, that is a child endangerment scenario to which CPS needs to be called. If you're talking about like actual child starvation, the truth is it does not take that much money to feed a child. I know I have 3 of them. You should be feeding your child before you feed yourself. It's that simple. There's a much deeper problem at work than school lunches if kids are legitimately starving.
A couple assumptions made there by Ben Shapiro in saying that people who have children that would be in need of free school lunches, breakfast or lunch, or maybe even both, aren't feeding their children, but they're feeding themselves. Where's that assumption coming from? But still, doesn't matter. He's advocating against this type of rule, or at least benefit for children in school. It's something that this party that cares about the children is pushing really hard lately. This whole thing went viral, and actually TYT's own John Idaho was one of the people who pushed back. And he said this, quoting what Shapiro then said. He said, "Food won't cure hunger," in quotes, is the real intellectual gladiator stuff. And John likes to throw out those expletives every once in a while. You guys know his potty mouth. In talking about when Shapiro said this school lunch thing won't change it dramatically, or at least enough in his mind, which I think also led to Ted Lieu pointing this out as well. He says, "Your remarks are dumb. Let's do math. Say a kid should eat 21 meals a week. School lunches provide 5 of those meals, solving nearly 1/4 of the problem," saying that's pretty good. And how about you miss one of your meals 5 days a week and see how you feel? Now, I guess for my own personal approach, I miss all kinds of meals, but that's just by my own choice and my reasons for doing other things. But if we're talking about children growing and also in school learning and going through the whole rigors of the day, the activity levels and all that, they're definitely needed. And we continue to go down this road of debating whether or not it's okay to give these types of benefits to children in schools. So Ben Shapiro then responded to Lieu and said this: "If you think the key thing standing between kids and starvation is school lunch," now we're talking starvation, by the way, "that's silly. If a child is on the verge of starvation, you must call CPS, not spend hundreds of millions on disproportionately unhealthy lunches, a huge percentage of which are discarded." Now, Sharon, now we're starting to dive into previous administrations, specifically the Obama administration, because I remember when Michelle Obama, First Lady, was talking about making school lunches better, maybe healthier and all that. There was a tirade against her. How dare she step in the middle of our school lunches? And now we're talking about how first, we don't need them at all. They're too cheap, they won't do anything. And also, if we do have them, they're too unhealthy and get thrown out anyway. Which scenario would you be in favor of America, the country you love, having a benefit of their children having a future going forward?
You see, that's why John just said, I'll just give him the expletives, because there's no, what can you say to these people? Here in Atlanta during the pandemic, APS, the largest school district, right? Atlanta Public Schools, sent meals home because they realized we're remote learning, and these kids, sometimes it's the only meal they're gonna get. They sent food home for them and their families, okay? Because they realize they're hungry, they need food, not criminality. Call Child Protective Services? Fools.
This is the problem, though. Every time that folks don't want to talk about the source of problems, in this particular case, if there's children going to school hungry and they're just upset about whatever monies are spent on that, because it always goes back to that, it then changes this whole approach. Be like, well, they don't really need it. But if we actually look into the problem and how children do need it, they'd have to do something about it, and that's always the bottom line. You can't do anything about it. Why would we do something about it? We want to make sure these children, which we don't care about, because they assume those folks that are having to deal with this are the ones that don't vote for them, aren't as wealthy enough, so they only cater to certain folks. It's said so many different ways without saying it out loud. You just have to pay attention to what they're saying to you. And if you agree with this, it's cruel. It's a pretty simple way to explain that aspect of it. I was a kid that was on a free lunch program at one point. I didn't like the school lunches either. I felt embarrassed by it. I was thinking, I want that the brown paper bag lunch. I mean, those kids were like, I don't want this lunch either. That's the first hurdle already, but at least you provide it there. This is America, I thought.
Yeah, and you know what? They should really, this is something else. This is just Atlanta, I'm sure other school districts did it. They made it free lunch for everybody. They didn't make a distinction. They didn't want that stigma. They said, you know what? For the next school year, it's just free for everybody. Just, it's not great food because school lunches aren't great food. Okay, maybe it doesn't taste so great, but free lunch for everybody.
If they have to address the problem and see the background to it, they'd have to then do something, which is definitely what they don't want.